Music matters. Eleanor Kingston.
Hello.
How are you today?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you very much for doing this.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. I think, so I started listening to your music because of your brother, and I think you guys are the first brother-sister, like, duo I've interviewed, which is really cool.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
We should have come together.
We could do it in the future. That would be
Yeah,
sick.
exactly.
Have you guys ever done stuff like that? I know you have, like, songs together and stuff.
I don't think, well, we did one interview together,
That's
but
fun.
it was a Zoom. It was like us on Zoom.
Yeah.
And then that was screen recorded to YouTube.
Okay. Gotcha. Was it during COVID?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did you think of, like, the Zoom interviews during COVID?
That was the only one I did, actually. It was fine. I mean, the questions were good. Oh gosh.
Damn. Loud ass playing.
No, it was cool. I mean, I think a lot of stuff still happens on Zoom.
Yeah.
More because of the pandemic, so it's become normal.
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely don't like it as much
Yeah.
as being in person, because when you've met in person, I feel like there's that level of, oh, now I know you.
Yeah.
Versus over Zoom.
100%.
I'm like, okay, I haven't really met you yet.
Yeah. I feel like when I talk to somebody on Zoom, I don't, like, comprehend that they're a real person. like to me, like, they're a screen. You know what I mean? Like, there isn't, like, I don't think about the fact that's, like, an actual individual somewhere else, you know?
Yeah, you have to try harder to remember that.
Yeah,
than
exactly.
Just being in person with people, yeah.
I feel we're even doing, like, Zoom meetings, I think, opposed to, like, I think, like, a phone call feels way more normal to me for, like, a meeting opposed to, like, a Zoom thing. Because if I'm doing the Zoom thing, I'd rather just be in person. Because the phone call, at least, like, I'm only focusing on your voice. I think, like, if I'm not in person with somebody, but I'm trying to, like, comprehend that they're not there, I just can't, like, pick up on what they're saying as well. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, I only use Zoom if I need the screen share.
Yeah.
Or if it's, like, a huge group of people.
Yeah.
And that's the only time I touch it.
Did you move out here during COVID? Was that when you moved here?
8 months before COVID.
Oh, so you were here when everything happened?
Yeah, because I had just graduated in June, and then I moved here, and then it hit, like, in March.
Where did you go to school?
I went to school at Hotchkiss in Connecticut. And so I was back east for 4 years, and then I'm from Utah. Yeah. But I didn't feel like that was home anymore since I moved away at 14. Yeah. So I just moved here.
So you moved to Connecticut at 14 and then you went to school there, or where did you move at 14?
I went to school, there.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Yeah,
it was like a boarding school.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I see.
Yeah, so 4 years from 14 to 18. And then I just came here.
And then you came to LA straight after?
Yeah.
Damn, that had to be a crazy thing to do, like, right after high school, just coming straight to LA. Did you know anybody, or did you just come out here, like, solo?
I did come here solo, but I mean, I always knew I wanted to be here, so it didn't feel like a crazy jump at the time. Looking back, it's like, whoa. Yeah, I did totally. That, and it worked out, thankfully. Yeah. But no, I mean, it was I knew some people, but I didn't keep in touch with those people through the past 4 years. It was people I had met kind of occasionally when I was in high school. I spent the summer here. So I knew a few people.
That was how I felt when I was, like, talking to your brother about how young he moved here at. That had to be so crazy. So he moved here, like, to move in with you, right? Okay. So when you moved out here, you said you knew some people. Were you living alone at 18 here?
Yeah.
That'd be crazy.
I lived alone for a year. And then a year and 3 months. Yeah. And then my brothers moved in.
Well, what was that first year like? Did you, like, how long did it take for you to get accustomed and feel like you, like, had a life in LA outside of Utah?
I think, like, part of it is so blurry almost. Yeah. Where I'm like, what the hell even happened that year? Yeah. I don't know. Maybe I was, like, drunk the whole time or something. No, I mean, it was fine. I feel like the people I was friends with that year are not still in my life for good reason. Yeah. Like, I was kind of surrounding myself with people that weren't really on the same mission in life and didn't really I didn't find a circle of people that I really connected with. But I felt at the time that I was connecting with people. Looking back, I wasn't. Yeah. But now I'm like, the first year definitely was a strange one. I was still a bit of an outsider to feeling like a resident, but
it's really strange, like when you move here, I think, to get to the point where it's like you feel like you actually live here. Like we were just talking, like today it actually is a year for me. I've been in LA a year today, which is crazy, but like looking back at it, it feels like a few months, like and it's like, it's almost like I say this like every New Year, I feel like, but whenever anybody says like, oh, like how was your year, like how was your 2021 or how was your 2019, like you can't, like how do you answer that question? Because it's like you can't say like I had a bad year or like a good year, because it's like everything is like, it's such a gigantic accumulation of experiences, you know?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, it seems like you met some cool people your first year. It seems like you did a better job than I did. But no, I mean, I don't know. There's nothing, I think even people who have lived in LA a year are just as much like a part of LA. Because it's so, there's
like
so
transplanty, like it's all people who aren't from here.
Exactly.
Where when you moved from Utah and you got out here originally, were you doing music full time at that time, or were you still like working jobs and trying to like juggle it?
Yeah, I was working.
Okay.
I was working at a restaurant as a server, and then I was working as a nanny, and then I've done like Uber Eats, and stuff like
so there's always like trying to find the next thing to keep it going.
Okay.
Were you was the plan like always to move right out here and pursue music like right after you finished school?
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
I didn't, I heard a lot about don't do that, but I was at a time in my life where I think like mentally I was so low, like I wasn't like the happiest in high school and stuff, that I was like, what do I have to lose? Like I'm just going out to find what would make me happy and like my place in the world and what I want to be. And so I mean,
I was kind of thinking about that earlier, like sort of cut you off, but I was thinking about that kind of like that concept earlier, like it's almost like I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about like people's lives as like a hero's journey, and then thinking about like, okay, like you choose what you're gonna do, and then everything else, like every other decision that happens post that decision is like to account for the fact that you made that first decision, which is a weird concept to think about. But I was thinking about that in the context of my own life. It was like one day I just decided that I was like gonna do this, and it was like because of that I ended up here. Like the butterfly effect's a really, really weird thing. Like do you think there's any way that there's any chance like you moved here and didn't pursue music, or like were there any other options on the table, or was it always just like I'm doing music and this is what I'm gonna figure out?
No, I've been an actor longer than I've been a musician.
Oh, cool.
So when I was really young, I knew I wanted to be an actress, and that's what I always said since I was like 6 years old. So that's what I was doing really most of my teenage years, until I became like really upset and depressed and just hormonal and all the teenage things. I was like, okay, music. I like music, and I enjoy making it. But when I came here, it was to explore both of those things. And just be around creatives and get inspired by creatives in like both fields. And I mean, I quickly in LA, kind of like with the butterfly effect thing, quickly was talking to an acting mentor of mine, and he said at the time, like, it sounds like you really are like leaning towards music right now. It sounds like the acting thing is becoming drudge work, and like you're really excited about the music stuff, so why don't you kind of like sink your feet in there and then explore acting when you want to. So I did that. Like when I moved here, I had literally I knew nobody in music. I knew literally nobody, and I had less than 100 monthly listeners, and just was not even making good music like at the time, but just came here and was like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna learn to make good music, and I've gotten back into acting since then, because I felt like I did my thing, like I got my name out there in the music world, and I put my feet in the water, and now I know people, and it's like a lifestyle for me. So now I'm doing acting as well.
Yeah, that's so wild that you moved out here and like didn't have any traction at all. I think that's so admirable.
Not at all.
Yeah,
it could have gone worse for sure.
But. Yeah, for sure. But I think like but almost like the fact that you did that, it like you set yourself up for success in that way. I think because I feel like you wouldn't like allow yourself to fail at that point, right?
I wouldn't, and
you kind of cut the safety net.
It also just never happened.
Yeah,
like failure never happened. Luckily, you know, I always somehow found a way to make the money before it was due, somehow found the way to like keep putting in the work to get people's attention. And like that isn't to say, oh, everything's been hunky-dory. Like there's been a lot of hate, like quit this shit, you suck at this shit, like literally what are you doing? And some of that at some points was deserved. Like the music wasn't very good at the start, but that's how everybody starts. But it's like I just kept getting kind of affirmations from the universe, almost like I'm a spiritual person. That's what I like to call it. I kept getting these signs of like, keep going. And they'd be random. Like I hadn't applied to get verified on Instagram in like 2 years and like randomly woke up verified one day.
Weird.
Like from, I guess, articles or something.
That's how it works, right? It's like publications or whatever?
Yeah, it was like 2021 and it just randomly happened and I was like, that's crazy. And it's not just that. There were things where I was like, oh my God, I don't even know any producers. Like, what the heck? Yeah. And one would just like stumble onto my apartment complex doorstep. And
did that happen?
Music. Yeah.
How did that?
And that's my
crazy.
longest collaborator. Like I've worked with him for 4 years. His name's Cole Boya. He's really fucking good. He works with Edward too, Buppy.
Nice, brother. Cool.
And yeah, he was friends with this girl who I met her one time and was like, oh, there's an opening in my apartment. Yeah. She literally signed a lease and moved in there. And I was like, that's crazy. That never happens.
That's wild, yeah.
And then she was friends with him and he was coming over and I was getting out of an Uber from my serving job. Because I didn't have a car.
Yeah.
I took Uber and I got back home and like he was just outside and we just started talking and then I went up to her apartment to hang out with them and he was like, oh, I'm a producer and he's the only person I made music with for the first year in LA. Like
that's crazy.
It was crazy because when I met him, like the only reason I was invited up is because I happened to be there at that moment. Yeah. It wasn't like we were all set to hang out that night.
Yeah. Like you literally could have spent like an extra 10 minutes at work and that never would have happened.
It never would have happened. Yeah. And I don't know where my life would be without meeting him.
That's
like
so
he's one of my best friends, inspirations.
Yeah. That is so wild. Lately, I think about that a lot too. Like my roommates, like all of them, me and him met at a show. Like randomly, me and my other roommate met in Saturday school, and me and my other roommate met because we sat next to each other in a photo class. So it's just like it's so random. But
it is really random.
Yeah.
But it just goes to show there are a lot of cool people.
Totally. You know? And I also think like there is a level of like everybody will eventually find these opportunities, but like the conscious choice to like enforce the fact that like they will happen in your life is kind of how you get there. Like I feel like I've always felt like failure is a choice to a certain degree in the context that like you can't fail if you keep trying. Like in my head, like the only time where like you truly can fail something is if you just stop trying to do it. And I think if you just never stop trying to do it, eventually those opportunities will come your way, like whether it's by chance or, you know, by you being a good person or just being like, you know, social or like, you know, meeting the right people. But it's like, I think if you, there's this phrase or this saying, I don't remember who said it, but it's if you stick around the barbershop long enough, you're more than likely to get a haircut.
Yeah, it's true.
You know what I mean? It's just like eventually, like you will get lucky eventually.
Yeah, and I think it's also like there are some people, you know, that call it different things, like luck and destiny and fate and all these things. And for me, it's like, not that I think our whole lives are planned out for us the day that we're born. We do have say in what happens to us, you know?
Totally.
But like, it's just cool when you get those signs from the universe or like weird things happen that really change your life to not think that like it happened for a reason and that it is like a sign that you can do what you say. You know, if you say something to yourself every day, more than likely like it'll happen.
Yeah, 100%. Well, that's why I believe manifestation like a lot. Like I feel like people
I have a tattoo.
Oh, sick.
Yeah.
I love that font. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's literally just his handwriting, the tattoo artist.
Oh, nice. That looks sick. Yeah.
I was like, I don't know a font. He was like, well, my handwriting is really cool. And
my font, yeah.
He's like, most people just choose my handwriting. And
damn. Okay, bro. Yeah, but that's the thing. It's like, I feel like people are so quick to like dismiss manifestation as if it's like some like crazy like universal law or whatever. But in my head, it's literally just like the practice of speaking things into existence. Yeah. To me, that's like all it is. And that's not like out there or strange or even like overtly spiritual in my opinion. Like, it's just like it's in my head, it's actually logical. Like, you know what I mean?
It's really the thing that saved me. Yeah. Like that idea, because I think like society and like the steps to follow and what everybody does for since the beginning of time is like how you need to do it. It's like, okay, I'm gonna get lost in that thought or that concept because I have anxiety and I have social anxiety and I want people to love me, and so I feel like I'm failing or doing something wrong if you tell me that this is what I should be doing and I don't. But then I also have this strong desire to do it anyways. Yeah. And so I have like a lot of anxiety about what people will think of me, and then that thought alone of like, no, just what you think you can be, you can be. Yeah. So don't listen to the naysayers. Like that kept me going.
When do you think that like started to get better? Like, when do you think like that mindset started to switch in your head? It's
still hard. Like, I'm not gonna say I've reached the point of total I don't give no fucks about what anyone thinks.
That's incredibly hard. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would love to get there. But no, I think a lot recently. I mean, I've been introduced to spirituality mostly through like romantic partners. And I'd say the first time someone like brought it up to me was like in a relationship like 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago, maybe. And from then, like, a lot of stuff just started to change over time, because there were moments when I was like, I don't believe it. Or then I was like, I do believe it, but I was failing to implement it and participate in those practices. Yeah. And then over time, the universe kind of like just kept showing me that was the way I should be going. Yeah. And I need to make these changes in my life to get there. And like through that spiritual self journey growth, that's kind of when I came to those conclusions naturally. And like, it's okay if nobody likes me. Like, this is what I'm doing. Yeah. You know?
And it's super hard, but I feel like the easy thing to do is to be like overly cynical. Like, the easy thing to do is to be like, oh yeah, like that's silly, that's bullshit, I'm not gonna believe in that, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Just to be dismissive, you know, dismissive of things like spirituality and manifestation. But it's like so many of these concepts aren't like I feel like they're often made to be like super complicated and the super like out there. But like I said, like, so many of them just like make sense in my head in like a logistical setting, you know?
I know, it's really true. And also there's like so much misinformation too on like what it is, and people who misspeak or, you know, don't fully understand it themselves before they like start a podcast about it. Yeah. And then you're like, oh my God, you know, that's not what it is, you know, but then you're also like figuring out what it means to you every day too. And like, so I'd say it's not that hard to understand when you're ready to understand it in the way that makes sense for you. Yeah. Because there's no one size fits all, and like it's really just a concept versus like you have to, you know, like, I want a Ferrari, I'm gonna have a Ferrari. It's not like that.
Exactly.
At all. Yeah. Unless you truly believe, like, and feel it in your bones that you're gonna have a Ferrari someday. Yeah. And you take the actionable steps to get it.
Like, that's the part I think that people forget. Yeah. It's like manifestation is not like wishing upon a star. Like, it's just like believing in yourself enough to get to the point where you know that you will begin to figure out like the steps between point A and point Z, you know?
Yeah, and it's not like, because people will be like, how can you believe in manifestation? Like, I want a jacket right now. Where's my jacket?
Yeah, it's like, not like that, yeah.
No, you know, it's not magic. Yeah. It doesn't defy the laws of science. It's just saying, if you can believe it enough yourself, like, there's something out there that might help you get there.
100%.
At some point.
Yeah. You know? I think about like this idea a lot, like the idea that like you have to believe in yourself wholeheartedly before anybody else can believe in you. And I think that is especially true if you want to be like in the creative field, because like the reality is like the like 1% of people who try to make this career or make this their career like can like last long enough and you know understand this enough and like learn enough and just like persevere long enough to like make it their career. So it's like you really have to have like a level of delusional self-belief or like I guess I call it like delusional self-belief, but it's not delusional, you know. It's just like understanding that like life is entirely malleable and like you can like shape the world around you to your desires, you know. And
that doesn't mean too, because I've met a lot of people on my path where thought that meant like I am superior.
No, yeah.
Like I have this level of delusional self-belief that I'm incredible and I'm one of the special chosen ones. It's like actually the opposite of that. It's like delusional self-belief that like we all can and we all could get there, and you're just another person who has that capacity, and then that'll keep you, you know, because I listen to a lot of like artists and producers on podcasts and interviews who talk about stuff like this, and they're like, some of them believe, you know, like these aren't even my thoughts, my ideas, like they're God's and given to me, and I just like, you know, people talk about how the spiritual stuff can erase that ego, and that ego makes things harder on you than easier, because your life's going to be really hard if you're like, I'm incredibly like incredible and nobody else.
Because it's not true. No, or even if it is, it doesn't matter.
It's just we're all pretty, you know.
I love that.
We're all just human. Like, no one's better than the other, you know.
I love that idea that like it's not like having that level of like delusional self-belief that you can be creative is not like the arrogance to think that you're better than somebody, but instead just like understanding that like we all can do this. Because I really love the way that you said that, because I think about that, but I've never thought about it like in that context.
Well, and that's what I dislike about some people in LA, because I'm like inspired by all the people who came here and like made this their mission, and like we are really the same in that way, and they are really like admirable in those ways to me, but then they're just like rude and think that they're better than everyone, or at any sign of success or fame or follows they become a different person and switch up, and it's like, okay, that's not you know, that's not exactly spirituality or what it means to be a successful person in life.
Did you experience, like, when you moved here, some of the people that you were around, like, change because of LA?
I didn't. Nobody that I knew, like, in Utah, or, like, none of my brothers, none of my friends from home that also live here have I experienced that with. Sorry, I'm like having a burp. Like coming out. This is the worst time for that. Yeah, like nobody like that, but just I've seen people in LA. Like I mean, TikTok, right? You know, like, I've been here for 4 years, and most of that was during the TikTok artist revolution. I've met a lot of artists that have blown up on TikTok. It is not
real.
It is not. It's like really hard to do, and like they're all super talented, but like it's just doesn't mean you're like better than people or whatever. And I'll see people go from, God, I'll know them when they have 1,000 followers on TikTok to when they have 1 million followers on TikTok. That's happened
different people
so many times with me and people I've known, and a lot of times it's the same, where like they'll get to that point and they're like, oh, all the artists that I was on the come up with like ain't shit compared or whatever, and they'll go get new friends, and it's like, no, like an algorithm of luck, you know what I mean? Or even if it's not the lucky algorithm, or you don't believe in that, it's like, you know, it could happen to your friends too. It can happen to anyone.
I think you can, like, a lot of the times though, you can tell like how people will respond to success when they see it. And I also think like it's interesting because like to really, you know, do this shit, you got to have like 1,000 wins. But like you can see by like win number 20 how people are responding to success. And if they're responding with like incredible arrogance and like with egoism, like those are the people that are just gonna fail. Because it's like you have to like one thing I think about a lot. I think like this is very true if you're gonna like be a full-time like creative and like be an artist. It's like I really think that you can't get like too high with the highs and you can't get too low with the lows, and you kind of got to keep your head like somewhere in the middle. Because I think like as soon as you get too obsessed with yourself, you're not modest enough to create. And as soon as you get like too self-hatred-y, you're not going to create at all. So you got to keep your head, in my opinion, like, at least, I mean, it's hard, of course, but like, you got to try to keep your head like somewhere in the middle there, where it's like you appreciate the things that you create and you love the things that you're making, but you also understand that you have a lot to learn.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Yeah,
that's well put.
I think like that was probably one of the most like beneficial realizations of my life, especially when I moved here. I think actually it was very humbling when I moved here, because I realized like I don't know shit, and that's but that's like awesome. Like that's really cool, because it's like a gigantic opportunity to learn, you know?
Yeah, and you can that was kind of what kickstarted a lot of what I did, was just like observing the people around me, because watching that happen, I was like, okay, game on. I'm gonna do that too then. You know, and you see some of your friends who are producers that start with no clients, no artists, you know, sign deals with like pub companies. And you watch it happen in front of your eyes out here, and it's like really cool, because while I think in a lot of other places and states people are like, oh, barely anyone who comes out to LA makes it, everybody moves home, it's not entirely true, because it's like, what is your definition of making it? Because there's actually a lot of ways to make this full time. You know, and like not everybody gets to be the next Taylor Swift, of course. But if you want to be a songwriter, if you want to be a producer, if you want to be actively like making an income from this, which is what most people consider making it,
True.
you can come out here and do that in so many ways, and just do it for a living. You might not be a millionaire, you might make $50,000 a year or whatever,
but you're living,
but you're surviving off of it, and that is actually a lot of people in this city. So it's not this like weird concept that's so foreign of like pursuing your dream in entertainment. It's like, no, so many people work in entertainment beyond the names that y'all know.
It's just like another industry, you know?
Exactly. It's just another line of work, and it's not as simple. You don't need a college degree for it, but you could get one. You know, it's like not as laid out the steps you're gonna take, but it's possible.
I think that's like the difference between like the romanticized version of like, I'm gonna drop everything and move to LA and become a star, and then like the reality of it, you know, like, because the reality of it, like you said, like I talk about this all the time, like there is an incredible like thriving class of like middle class musicians in LA, and that's pretty cool. Like there's a lot of people who just like, and there's some people who like plenty of like producers or engineers or session players or live players that just like they make their living off like what they enjoy doing, and that's enough for them, and that's awesome. Like, and that's very much a reality that I think a lot of people who move from like, you know, like Park City or like the Bay Area don't fully understand it. So you move, like you live here, and then you're like within that culture, and you meet all these people who they're like, oh, what do you do? I'm like, I'm a producer, or like I'm an engineer, or like, you know, I'm a gaffer, or like whatever. But it's like there's people who have like careers that are still artistic and make them a living, but they're not like stars, you know what I mean?
And if you do it because you love it, that's like, you know, even more real and even more common of a path too. Like obviously if you do it for the fame and the clout and stuff, like I agree with you. That is a really high pipe dream to have. I agree. Like maybe you will, maybe you won't, and maybe you will, and then you'll fall off and you'll be sad. I don't know. It's not that common, right? That it's like a superstar is born, but you know, you can make one of my favorite artists is like Lauren Sanderson.
Not familiar.
Who like isn't a household name, but like I think it's like 600,000 monthly listeners, like off of streaming royalties alone. That's you don't have to work a job.
Hey, you're doing good.
There's a lot of artists with over 600,000 monthly listeners.
And I think like I wish there was a better way to explain this to people who like are a lot older than us, like our parents' generation, like because to them like all they ever because like this didn't really exist as much because it was so much more gay kept when they were like kids.
New. This is new.
Which is very interesting to think about because it's like I wish I could explain to my mom like. Well, I'm sure she would understand it, of course, but it's just like I guess like that generation doesn't like understand like how many careers there are behind the scenes in this shit. Like there are so many people who I'm sure like have moved to LA with the like intention of just like fully pursuing their artist project, and then have like become songwriters or have like you know become producers or have worked in whatever setting or session players. But it's a very like new concept that I think is difficult to explain to like people that are a lot older than us. You know? Yeah,
totally. I mean, my dad's in his. Both my mom and my dad are in their 60s, actually. And, yeah, it's a different it's a different world. And then even like talking to my grandma, like it's just like, you're not gonna make any money from that, right? I'm like, okay, that's okay.
I know, yeah. I'm aware. It's not about that. Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I will, maybe I don't. But like,
who knows? Yeah.
I'm just doing it.
Yeah, exactly. I adore talking to my grandma about what I do.
Really?
Yeah, it's the best because she's so supportive.
That's lucky.
Yeah, I feel so lucky. And she also like, it's all very new to her. So she gets excited. And,
that's cute.
And I love it. Yeah.
That's
she's
really
like
cute.
so
that's
fun to
like
talk to
my
about
mom.
it. That's so cool.
Like she'll text me for like Instagram tips and stuff, and now she's trying to be an Instagram influencer and all this. And it's cute to see that kind of stuff. But
did she was she like involved in music at all as a kid, or like anything like that, or did she push you to pursue it, or like what was your relationship with like with your parents and music?
Yeah, my dad's from Europe. My dad grew up between Malta, which is a tiny country in the Mediterranean, and England, splitting his time between both. And then he came to America to go to Harvard for college. He was just like a rugby player.
Cool.
And then my mom was like born and raised in Boston and did the like boarding high school thing, which is why I did that. Met my dad doing like a 1-year study thing at Harvard. And then my mom was a flight attendant and my dad was a professor. But yeah, I mean, my mom, like outside of school and being a flight attendant, was like in New York on SNL. Like she was like a background. Not even like that. Like she was like a supporting. She walked in and the guys that were really, the most famous people on SNL at the time were like, oh, she's a dime piece. Like, and she was that person on SNL. So nothing like,
this is so
crazy.
Cool though. That's so like cool.
I mean, it's cool to talk about it. And then she was like a hand model and like did modeling stuff. Yeah, did like different stuff in New York. But then my dad was in Boston, and she wanted to go back and be with him, and kind of gave up that dream to raise a family, which was ultimately like her main dream. Yeah. So my parents were both like with like rugby and modeling and acting, like
ambitious things.
They
for
were
sure,
ambitious, and they knew the importance of sport and creativity and art, but they were also like really big into education.
Interesting. Okay.
My mom came from like the New England upper echelon college feeder schools, and then my dad, professor, and went to Harvard.
What did he teach?
Sociology and business.
Wow. Okay.
So two very separate things. Yeah.
When you moved out here and started going to school, was that with him? Like, did he encourage you to school, or like, because that's interesting that he was like an athlete, so he probably understood the ambitious aspect of it, but then also a professor, so he understood like the educational aspect of it.
Yeah. No, he was not supportive of me not going to college at all. They were both very supportive of me going to Hotchkiss, because it was a great New England prep school, and that would, my brother went there and then went to Stanford. So I think they had lofty dreams of me like following that path, but I ultimately just was like so sad in school in the last few years of being at school. I was really sad that I was like, if I go to college, like maybe I'll end up dead. Yeah. Because I'm so miserable right now that if I get put into another situation like this for 4 more years where I live at the school, I feel like I can't leave the school. Yeah. I'm pressured to stay. Like, will I want to just like die, because that's where it felt like I was at. So it was like just not even a question for me on if I wanted to like go pursue what was worth living for.
Yeah, totally. I think it's good that that's becoming more and more of a conversation though, like the mental health aspect that is associated with school, I think, because like it is, unfortunately there are like in amongst like people within our age demographic, there is very much like a problem, of course, with mental health, and then of course like suicide and things like that. But I think like people that are older than us becoming consciously aware of the fact that like school is not for everybody is like a new thing, because it used to just be like what you do, and there was absolutely no alternative. But it feels like that's becoming less and less the norm. And of course, I think like the 4-year route or whatever is still like the norm, or like the perceived norm. But like people like you and me, I think that like didn't do that. I do think like that is becoming more and more of like an accepted option, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And honestly, I don't know, maybe I'm totally wrong making this statement and it's been longer than this, but like when I didn't choose to go to college, which was only four years ago, I was told I was like going to work at McDonald's for the rest of my life. Like that was told by, one of my favorite teachers at that school who absolutely adored me.
That's crazy.
And he did it. He's a great guy. I like him. But he said that because he's from a different time, where that maybe was like the truth or whatever. And now I think though lately, like maybe though it's just being in LA, maybe like it's the same how it always was. But I think maybe since the pandemic it's changed.
Yeah.
With the work from home stuff and people taking out, like I know Google, it was recent where they took out that need, you're only qualified if you go to college. So.
Oh really? I didn't know that.
A lot of companies did that in the past few years. Yeah, big companies.
The irony too is often the opposite is true. Like a lot of times, like people who go to school and they graduate with a degree that isn't like super applicable to like a profitable career path or whatever, like a lot of those people end up like their degree is their Achilles heel. Like they end up getting in the situation where it's like they have so much debt because of the fact that like they pursue this degree that they don't use and they haven't been able to get a job with it. They're like the reason they are struggling financially is because they went to college, and that's like a crazy ironic like turn of events.
Yeah, that was scary to me too because when I grew up, my parents were not wealthy, and like I heard screaming and crying about debt like my whole life and money issues and whatever, and I was like, okay, even if I don't go to college, like even if I'm just a server though, like you're still in LA, I'm probably making like over $3,000 a month and I'm not in debt $1, so I was just kind of like, why would I go to college? Like, that sounds horrible,
Let me ask you this. This is like an interesting question to me. So I served tables forever. And I just walked away. But the walking away from serving, was it difficult for you to accept the fact that you're like, because server, you make good money in LA if you're serving tables at a nice restaurant. Like I definitely make good money. Like
sometimes it was like I'm sure I have said this many times. Maybe I'm super wrong. Fact check me. But I would venture to guess servers at Nobu and Malibu make just as much as a doctor.
Yeah. Oh, I 100% guarantee. Yeah.
There's no way they don't.
I truly,
every meal is over $1,000.
I truly think you're right.
Like automatically 25% every meal, multiple tables, 8-hour shift, boom.
I bet they walk.
Rich.
Dude, that's
like,
crazy to think
rich.
about. Yeah, like I bet you walk out with like an average, like I bet an average night at like Nobu was like a $500 night. Probably more. To be honest, that's
probably $1,000.
That's inconceivable to me. And then, but that's the trap of restaurants, right? Because it's like you do that for so long, and it's soul draining. Like it's mental. Mentally, it sucks. Yeah, but it's like, but at a certain point, that money can become difficult to walk away from. And I think especially like, if you have kids or whatever, like while you're serving tables or like, you get married or something, like while you're serving tables, that money can become really hard to walk away from. I think that's when people get trapped because like it's like a contrast of like, do I care more about like what I'm making every day, or do I care more about like my mental, my mental state, my happiness and my fulfillment level? Because it's like, dude, servers make more than a lot of professions. Yeah,
I mean, even when I was like a nanny in LA, I was nannying like 9-hour shifts like of a toddler, and it's so exhausting that I would like go home and collapse for the night and then like wake up and do it again. And I wasn't like I was always releasing stuff, and somehow like by the grace of the universe, like I was able to still be an artist, but I was definitely pursuing it less than I wanted to be. And like now that I'm not working a typical day job, like working for myself, I'm like, okay, I have more time to invest in like this artistic stuff than I did when I was like chasing like a fat bag, at these other jobs. Yeah. Because nannying in LA is great money as well.
I didn't know that.
Great money.
What your brother does is crazy to me.
Degree level graduate money per hour. Yeah. So it's like, it's both of those are good money. But then I was like, ugh, like I'd rather just, try to be self-employed and make less money, whatever.
That's kind of how I felt too, because it was like, even if, if you're serving tables, you're making like 4 times the amount of money, or like 5 times the amount of money you are with whatever your creative endeavor is, you still come home and you're exhausted and it drains you. Like it was so difficult for me to come home and create after a full 8-hour serving shift. Like you're dead. You're absolutely 100%. Dead, and you're drained. It's like the last thing you want to do, and I think that's why people get stuck, because it's like they get in this cycle where it's like it's strange, but it's like, to get out, you have to do something once you're done working. But work drains you so much that you don't have the energy to like pursue something else, and it's difficult. I think people get trapped that way really, really fast. Well,
in 4 years, I've never had a typical weekend.
Yeah. That's what
I've worked on every vacation I've ever been on.
Yes.
And like the day after Christmas, I work.
Yeah.
So it's like, and when people say, oh, what's work? I'm like, well, honestly, it's a mixture of things. It's like making the music, marketing the music.
Yeah.
Creating visuals, like controlling a team of people, contracts. Yeah. Like you're just always doing something. And like if someone hits you up because they need something on a Saturday, like the music industry doesn't respect Saturday and Sunday or midnight or 4 a.m. You can still call people, apparently.
For sure.
I still get calls. So it's like, you have to be ready to work to really like make it, especially if you're also working another job.
Totally.
You can't be like, I'm gonna work another job and be an artist and have a weekend. That doesn't exist.
No way. No way. You can't even do those 3 things and like have a day off. Like you don't get a day off, you know what I mean?
No.
Like, but I will say, like, to me, the alternative is so much like what I'm doing now is way better than what I was doing before.
Exactly.
Like this weekend, I had my first full weekend without serving tables in years. But it was like, it wasn't like, what blew my mind wasn't even like not being in a restaurant. What blew my mind was like the mental like anguish that like I just it wasn't on my mind, like I felt free in like a amazing way. And to me that beats like I'll work music, I'll do music stuff 90 hours a week if it means I can, if I can not have that feeling.
Yeah, exactly.
When you were in Utah, the people you were around, and like, like with a place in Park City's where the town you're called from.
Yeah.
Is what's called,
Park
right?
City, yeah.
Were the people you were around like in Park City, was there any music there at all? Like what was like the industry there? Like did you like how did you find your way into music? Was it just through the internet, or was there anybody around you in Park City that was creating?
Mainly like the internet.
Okay.
Like, yeah, for sure. I mean, like I'd say, I guess like the long of the short of it is like in Utah, when I was a kid, my parents wanted me to like take a lot of instruments and just be a well-versed human being.
Sick, yeah.
And so I would take instruments, in Utah when I was a kid, and I never really took to anything except for voice lessons, which I did take to. And then flash forward to high school, like I was, partaking more in the theater department, but sometimes in the music department. I would occasionally take an instrument lesson, and like I joined the choir. Like I was in, voice classes in high school. So that was kind of formal education, but like outside of that stuff, it was really like just artists like feeding my soul in this way that like I didn't feel understood. And like I was literally a kid at 14, like moving away from home into this group of people that like, it's people from all over the world go to that school. Like it's not the people who like I've known my whole life. It's just so many new people. And like I didn't feel like I fit in, and it was like just Halsey and like other like pop indie girls who were posting online and like making killer songs that I felt like understood by and connected by. And I took a poetry class in high school, and I have always loved poetry. I've written my whole life. Like I've been a writer longer than I've been literally anything else. And I loved poetry class. I wanted to turn my poems into songs, and that's kind of how it all started.
Existing like in those three worlds at once is interesting. I feel like the poetry / writing, music, and then like drama as well, like doing the theater stuff. It's cool to like, I think, like be that well rounded as an artist too, because it's interesting. Like you realize the further you get into this shit, I think that like everything is like one thing Mario says all the time that I think is really smart. He always says like, what do you say about like consuming other movies and like other art and how it impacts what you make? Yeah, exactly.
True.
Like everything you consume, like every kind of art you consume enriches the art that you make, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like having that ecosystem, I think it just it forces you to look at things in a different way. You know, like do you think like any of the theater stuff you've done has like made you look at the music differently?
100%. And it's also just like, you know, I've taken classes at like the Upright Citizens Brigade in Hollywood, you know.
What's that?
It's like a improv
cool.
Group in LA. And like you had to do crazy stuff, you know, and just feel comfortable with that. Like I was a freshman, like kissing someone in a play, like in the fall when I had just gone there and didn't know anybody. Like I've had to do these like weird, like crazy things as an actor, like filming a music video, no problem. Like, that's literally my comfort zone. And I think some artists like, and it's not a bad thing, some musicians like just don't thrive necessarily in front of a camera, and that's like, you know, they're better at some things that I'm not as good at. But like being in front of a camera, you know, is really comfortable to me. Like interviews are comfortable to me. Like being on my own, chasing a dream is comfortable to me, because I would come here on my own at 15 to like take an acting workshop or something. And then like writing, just like, you know, like some singers aren't their own writer, and that's cool. But for me, like the reason I love music is because I get to write lyrics and like
tell stories.
Like, you know, people do reach out to me, I guess, and like we have a conversation about my voice, but like rarely, you know, like that's not what people are talking about when they text me. It's like, oh, like I really resonated, like those lyrics, or like this is like, this song helped me get through so much and stuff. It's like because of the words that I'm saying, and because of the producers and how brilliantly my producers like put their feelings into the music. And like that's what people are really talking about. So, you know, it's cool that I can sing, but that's really like the word and the writing is more important to me. Yeah, no, 100%.
I think it comes across too. And I think that it makes so much sense that now you tell me you're like from the theater world, because you have so many like out of all your songs, like which ones don't have music videos? If like everything, almost everything you've done like has a video, right?
Pretty much. Well, so a lot of the older stuff does, and then I like there's like a slight lull across like a few singles. Yeah. And then I've picked it up again, and I'm doing videos again. Yeah. It's a really important part to me, and like if I had a budget to work with and like a team around me, there would never be a release without some sort of YouTube visual.
Yeah, I was surprised. Like, you have so many. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really fun. I mean, that was like, most of those were like a COVID project.
Okay,
which was cool too, because like that was like just the only like creative thing in COVID, aside from like, I'm like sweating.
No, you're good. Yeah.
It's so hot.
Sorry.
No, it's not your fault. It's the valley. But yeah, no, I love videos.
I really appreciate like the combination of like the visual and the music too. Like I've always thought like, I think music videos are like in my opinion, like they're the elite like form of like media. Like,
cool.
Cause like I don't know, I just think like the combination of like music and like a story and like visual storytelling all like rolled into one it's just so cool to me, you know?
It's one of the only ways you get to see like, or at least it used to be like literally one of the only ways on the internet that you got to see the artist in action before like TikToks and Reels and, you know, short form video content. It was like that's what you went to see the artist like living and existing beyond their voice.
I mean, that's where MTV changed everything.
Yeah,
like the whole like video killed the radio star. It's like MTV was the beginning of like when we had when musicians had to be people, you know, because like before that it was like there, at least to the best of my knowledge, like people were not invested in the personal life of a musician in the same way they are now, like to any degree.
There was like a huge revolution of that. Like obviously, you know, there have been stars of the past that were like huge in the news, but like in the early 2000s there was like that rise of like, what the heck is his name? Paris Hilton and like that whole group who just Kim Kardashian, all of them. Like, it was the internet star.
Yeah.
That made everyone so accessible.
Yeah. And I think that bleeds into what we now see with like the TikTok star, you know?
Yeah.
Like Charli D'Amelio could not have existed before TikTok.
Yeah, it's crazy that she does.
Yeah.
I mean, like, all respect to her, but like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, what just happened?
It's crazy to think
like,
about.
What? Like, she was like 16 and is like now a multi-millionaire from like dance videos.
Yeah,
like,
I
that's
know.
like a lot to comprehend.
But what's so crazy too is like whenever that happens now, like they're no longer just TikTokers, or like they're no longer just like one thing. They all become like musicians, or like they're like actors. Like all of a sudden, like like it's so strange to me that now like we advertently, like when people get famous, they either like start boxing or like make music.
Well, and that's like the unfortunate part is like not like that. Like Nessa Barrett is one of my favorite artists.
She
and
is
she
really
was like
good.
truly like a TikTok star.
Yeah.
But like now I just think of her as an artist. Love her. Like there are so many TikTokers. No. I was gonna say there's like so many TikTokers whom I respect, but like I don't know.
My respect is with all the TikTokers.
I don't know a lot of TikTokers.
Yeah.
But I respect like Nessa Barrett and stuff. But I don't know. I think that is like, it does do art a disservice. Like on one end, it does help the artist, and it is like the best it's ever been to be an artist.
Yeah, totally.
In terms of getting your name out there, but like it does hurt art when like these labels now are just wondering how many views your like TikTok's at or whatever, or like, oh, you have TikTok fame, you know, we're gonna make you a star in this field that you've literally never done before.
And they don't realize they can't.
It's like, oh my god, my homies have been out here in the like in the hot sun in the valley trying to make it in music for 10 years.
Yeah.
Like, you know, what about their music?
Yeah.
It's really good. You don't have to just go make a star out of like this pretty person who blew up. Like there are musicians out here that are, but I guess that's probably controversial.
But they also don't understand like how fleeting that is, and how like wrong that they can do that, and not even like morally, but just like you can't it like they just, I don't understand how like it took them like till now to understand it, like regardless of whether or not somebody has 1 million monthlies or not, like it was crazy to me, like post-COVID, how many people have blown up, never put a show, and then their first shows were like headlining tours, like headlining US tours. That's crazy to me.
Oh, you know, like from the TikTok stuff? Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, or like, I mean, the opposite was true too. Like people who blew up on TikTok had like millions of monthlies, but then couldn't sell like a 200 cap venue because they didn't have any fans, you know?
That's really true.
Yeah. It's so strange to think about. Do you think like if you had to put a label on it, do you think TikTok is like a net negative or net positive thing for the music industry?
Net positive.
Yeah.
But maybe that's also controversial. I don't know. But like I
think it is.
I think it's a positive, at least just from like what I've gained from it and like what I do to help other artists using that type of content, and like the way I think of my music, you know, there are ways that it's not always positive for me, and like, I do hate it in a lot of ways, but you know, when I step out and just look at it as a resource to use, then it is a cool thing.
Yeah, of course. Well, I guess like it's interesting because you have like the artist, like the pure artist perspective, and then also like the marketing perspective because of what you also do with like with the helping people with social media and stuff. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Last thing I want to ask you, if you could like define what success in music means to you, because I was thinking about it when we were talking earlier. It's like defining success and defining failure. If you had to like put a label on like what you think success looks like for you, what would it be?
For me, yeah. I mean, I would like cry tears if I made it, if like my artist project or my acting or like my art was a full-time living, not in like a jet setter millionaire way, but even just in a like I feel comfortable and my family can be comfortable way, or you know, at least my parents. And then also just like success in terms of, you know, shaping people's lives, and in that sense though, I think I've achieved success. Like even if I die now, I know there are people who have listened to my music and like it's become a huge part of their life, which I'm super grateful about. Yeah, exactly. Like those people make me be like, okay, I can go now. Like I have done my job in a lot of ways, like not on a huge scale, but on like I have, you know. And so it's really just probably just like I want it to be like that specifically in music to be full time.
Yeah.
You know, I do a lot of things in music that accumulate to full time, but like that being my sole focus is like just my art.
Yeah.
And creating.
Like Eleanor Kingston music is full time. Like that is what the full time job is. Yeah.
Exactly.
100%. No, I feel that, and I think that is a beautiful, beautiful thing to get to that point, because then it's like, I feel like when people get to that point, that's when their art like starts to flourish incredibly. I feel like, because it's like that is no longer the goal, you know, like once you get there, that's no longer all you're thinking about. And it's like you can just focus on just the art, you know, and the pureness of it and just the beauty of it.
That's true.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Eleanor.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I appreciate it. That was a great conversation.
Yeah, I love this question.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you dealing with the hot valley.
It's okay. No, I just realized like halfway through that I was like starting to like sweat.
Yeah.
You could probably see it on It's okay.
Well, thank you very much. Tell them where they could stream your stuff, where they could follow, they could listen.
Yes. My music is on all platforms. Eleanor Kingston on also most all social medias as well. You should find it.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Hell yeah. Music matters.